I mean, we all have things that we either need to work through, let go of, move forward from. And coaching is that next step of focusing on your future self and working back from there. So how are we going to get to that point? Some of it may say, working on goals, but the way I look at it is also we all know intuitively what's best for us, what we want, but it's been clouded by the world's view of what we should be doing, our family's view, how we grew up, maybe our own limiting beliefs. So being able to get back to what do you want? What do you feel in your gut is right for where you want to be? And then moving forward with guided intuition in that space, that's what I help people do. That's what I help women do. And I don't think until I had my own coach, I don't think I recognized how much I didn't trust myself.
Welcome to Her Unshakeable Confidence with dynamic mother-daughter duo Simone and Olivia Knego, where they discuss the secrets of transformation and how to build bold confidence and unwavering resilience. From intimate conversations with inspiring guests to sharing their personal journeys of triumph and challenge, Simone and Olivia create a supportive space where every woman is encouraged to rise above her fears and love the woman in the mirror. Tune into Her Unshakeable Confidence and join this special journey of connection and growth. It's like catching up with old friends who inspire you to be bravely and uniquely you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Her Unshakeable Confidence. I'm Simone Knego.
And I'm Olivia Knego. And today we have on special guest, Corey Winn. Corey Winn is a wife, a mom, a doctor of physical therapy, and the founder of Elevate and Empower, a private coaching practice for high-performing women and mothers in healthcare. Her passion is partnering with women to truly recognize their worth, gain clarity on the life and the future they want and not the future they should have, and release fear so that they can and step into the woman they've always dreamed of becoming. See, the first sentence when I was reading it, I was like, oh my God, my reading is so good today. And then,
yeah, well, you were wrong.
yeah. Sorry,
Welcome,
guys.
Corey. Welcome, Corey. So this is funny because she does, like, with Olivia being in law school, she does a ton of reading inside her head. So I think I need to challenge you more.
Yeah, I never read out loud. So like half the words that I read, I don't actually know how to pronounce at all.
This is what I was talking about. You never know where it's going to go.
I love it.
Okay, but I will say on this tangent, growing up, I was always the same way. I can remember reading the Percy Jackson books and they had the word chaos in it. And I was like in third grade and I was like, Choss? And for like 5 years, I was like, oh yeah, that's how you say it. Never said it out loud. And then I heard someone say it and I was like, oh, okay.
I love that. I remember being in third grade and if I couldn't read the word perfectly, I couldn't read. I mean, I was convinced that I couldn't read. And the amount of times that my teacher had to sit me down and go, you're going to come up against words that you don't know. Like, we've got to get past this.
Yeah, it's funny how it works because they were in a school for gifted kids and in remedial reading.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a really good reader. I'm an efficient reader.
Yeah.
That's the best way of saying it.
It's the pronunciation. I really think you get that from your dad. Oh my gosh, he's going to kill me. But, he pronounces words really funny, right? So
yeah, and you know what he's going to come on and say? That his English wasn't his first language. Okay.
Yeah, true. Okay, let's get back to regularly scheduled programming. Hi, Corey. So nice to have you here tonight or today, whatever day it is. I don't even know. So I want people to know more about you. I mean, that was like a little intro. So tell us a bit more about you so that we can, kind of dive into things.
Oh man, that could take a while.
Open-ended question.
From the PT standpoint, my uncle has a spinal cord injury. So I was around wheelchairs a lot of my younger life. And but then when I was 16, I totally pivoted. My whole life, I was going to be a veterinarian and I was going to have a big farm, large animal vet. But I tore my ACL when I was 16 and had months and months of PT. And then it opened up this whole world of, oh, that's what I actually want to do. So for years, I was outpatient neuro PT specialist and worked a lot with patients with Parkinson's disease. but my daughter's 9. And when she was born, 12 weeks of maternity leave, immediately went back to work. And when she was like 6 months old, I remember, frantically getting ready in the bathroom, and she crawled across the bathroom floor. And I was like, oh my gosh, she crawled for the first time.
Mm.
And I went and I took her to daycare, and her teacher looked at me and she said, oh yeah, she did that yesterday. And
Oof.
I was absolutely crushed. And she just looked at me like, what's wrong with you? And I told her, I said, please don't tell me those things. And she was like, what? And I said, I know that I am missing so many things, but please don't, clarify that for me. Just let me think that I saw it for the first time, that I heard the first, like, just let me think that. And she was like, okay. But that was kind of the beginning of, I don't want to do this 9 to 5 grind. I don't want to miss so much of her life. Now, she's not going to remember 6 months, but I will.
Right.
So, little bit by little bit, that started my thought of, do I have to do this? Do I have to stay in this box? So, that's kind of where it started.
It's funny when you say that about she won't remember it. And because people have said that to us so many times, like when we travel, we take all the kids from the time they were little, we would take all the kids with us. And people are like, why would you waste that money? They're not going to remember any of it. And I was like, but I will.
Right.
It's for me. I mean, it's good for
Uh-huh.
them, but it's for me. It's for me. And like I want those experiences with them. So it's interesting that you say it like that. So talk about what you do now. So because I want to get into the whole coaching aspect and kind of how you found that path and what you're doing with it.
Yeah. So, if I back up just a little bit, like at that point, I started working PRN. And then we moved across the country to Washington, and I had a friend who was health coaching. So, as far as entrepreneurship, that's what started my journey. And still working PRN, PT, still working with the neuro patients. And then I was really working with a lot of women who really needed health, and I absolutely loved it. But what I found was they continued to sabotage themselves, and they continued to go backwards, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And at that same time, my personal confidence was absolutely shaken to the core. And I started doubting myself, doubting all of my decisions. Was I in the right career? Was I doing the right thing? And I thought, this is it. This is what happens to women and men, I'm sure, as well. But we doubt our self-worth. We don't believe in ourselves enough to follow our own intuition, to make the right choice, or the choice that would be the fullest expression of us. How do I help that? And really, in like January of this past year is where I started to pivot. And I thought, in the end, arguably any type of health program could help you. You could really eat chili cheese fries all day long, not be healthy, but you could potentially lose weight if that's what you were looking for. But if we're not dealing with the underlying issues of lack of self-worth, poor confidence, I mean, hello, unshakable
Yeah.
confidence,
Yeah.
then it doesn't matter. We're always going to backslide. So that's when I really started working at that high level coaching space of the private one-on-one clients, because how often can you ask a woman, well, what do you want? And they kind of look at you and say, I don't know. My kids need this. My spouse needs this.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to do this for work. But what do you want? And they don't know. I mean, that is the hardest question for my clients to answer. And then next, well, what would your dream life look like? Well, I can't do that, or I can't do this, and
Mm-hmm.
this limitation over here. And they don't know, because nobody's asked them, and they haven't asked themselves. So what I do now is work with mostly women in healthcare who are moms, kind of gain clarity on what they want. Some of that is promotion and staying in the world of healthcare. Some of that is, using their expertise to move over here, but just empowering them to think outside the box and recognize that we don't have to stay in this lane because we checked all the boxes and we went to school for this, and we have to do that forever.
I'm a big believer that it's okay to change your mind. It is important to change your mind. And we should all be doing that. But for me, I grew up in the expectations were you committed to this, therefore that's what you're going to do. And it's funny, even when the kids were little, like when they said, I want to do this sport, we're like, you're going to finish it out. Right?
Uh-huh.
You're like, you start it, you got to finish it. I don't care how bad you suck. But in real life, what you should be doing is things that you really want to do. And I mean, it's funny, we talk about a lot of the same things. So like in my real method, the third pillar is ask yourself what you want, because as women, we tend not to do that. We tend to ask everybody else what they need and fail to really focus on what we need. And it starts with asking yourself what you want.
I was just talking to a colleague today just to piggyback off of that. And she said, being selfish is considered a bad word. She said, but as women, we have to be a little bit or a lot of it, but thinking of ourselves first so that then we can give to everyone around us. And that spans so many things. I've seen it in clients. I've seen it in patients. If you don't first take care of yourself, both mentally and physically, what do you have to give?
And that's why the, big story with self-care, right? Self-care isn't selfish. And I feel like, Liv, you don't have kids, so, but that like I have to do something for myself or it makes me better, right? It does. Like when I take time for myself, that, my mind is clearer. I'm more refreshed. I'm more patient, all of those things. But if I'm constantly doing and doing, which I still am constantly doing and doing, it's not like that goes away, but I still need to take some time for myself.
Yeah. I mean, without kids, I just think as a whole, it's unreasonable not to take time for yourself. You shouldn't have to spend your life devoted to something else, I guess. And you only have one life, so might as well do something you want to do.
Well, and I think too, it sets our daughters up, especially to recognize that the expectation isn't that you completely lose yourself. It's not that you say yes to all the things and all the boards and PTA this and sports and all the things, that it's okay to sit back and say, no, we're not going to do this right now.
And not feel guilty about it.
Right.
That's one of the biggest things, because there are people that have learned to say no, but then they are kicking themselves and feeling like they made a mistake or that, oh, I should have done it. I feel horrible. And that's not real, right? I mean, when you say no to things, it opens up the door for you to say yes to the things that you really want to do. And we need to learn what those things are.
I was just working with a client a few weeks ago, and she was stuck in this space of, well, I feel like I should be doing this and this should look like that. And I said, okay, hold on. You need to take should out of your vocabulary. And she was like, what? I said, for the next week, the only thing that you're going to work on is not shoulding yourself, making sure that what you're doing in that moment is either something that you love doing, or, she has a baby at home. Yes, he needs to be taken care of.
Right.
And she came back the next week and she's like, I had no idea how much of my day was consumed by things I thought I should be doing, things that I didn't need to be done or I didn't want to do. And it's incredibly freeing.
I kind of needed to hear that right now. We just had a conversation before this, actually, about all the things that I feel as though I should be doing at this stage in like law school. I'm 3 or 4 weeks in now, and I already feel behind in terms of like making connections with companies or like firms and like building out my resume. But yeah, like I shouldn't be focusing on that. I should be doing the work that's right in front of me.
Yeah, it's interesting how that works when you really start paying attention to the things that you say, right? And I would notice, actually, this is totally an offshoot, but when we first started doing the podcast, we talked about how much we use filler words, right? Instead of pausing to really think. And I think we do that in life in general, right? We think about what we should be doing, and then everything becomes a filler instead of just living the life you want to live. And it's interesting when you really think about it like that. I want to talk a little bit about coaching in general, because I do think there's like misconception of what coaching is. And I heard a really good, someone was saying today, I don't remember who I was talking to. So many people, I have no idea. That they were talking about how when therapy focuses on trying to fix the things that are you're stuck in the past on, but coaching is really about moving you forward. Is that kind of how you see it? And kind of having, right? I mean, an explanation of what coaching is, because coaching is not therapy, right? Coaching is completely different.
And I do not have a background in anything but physical therapy. So you do not want me to be your psychotherapist. That is totally out of my wheelhouse. But yes, what you said, I think, is exactly right. I think therapists oftentimes are very skilled in helping their patients or clients, however you want to call it, working through trauma, working through things from their past that they do. I mean, we all have things that we either need to work through, let go of, move forward from. And coaching is that next step of focusing on your future self and working back from there. So how are we going to get to that point? Some of it may say, working on goals, but the way I look at it is also, we all know intuitively what's best for us, what we want, but it's been clouded by the world's view of what we should be doing, our family's view, how we grew up, maybe our own limiting beliefs. So being able to get back to, what do you want? What do you feel in your gut is right for where you want to be? And then moving forward with guided intuition in that space. That's what I help people do. That's what I help women do. And I don't think until I had my own coach, I don't think I recognized how much I didn't trust myself, how much I looked for external validation and external answers. And I had a mentor years ago. I asked her a question that I wanted an answer to. And she said, well, tell me why you think that is. And I remember being so angry. And she just sat there and she stared at me. And I was like, I don't know. I need you to tell me. And she said, no, you don't need me to tell you. You need to decide, or you need to figure out. And that was so hard. And I think women, I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but for me, I spent so much of my life looking for external validation, feeling like I needed to be perfect, toe the line in a certain way because of what would other people think, that I didn't know what I wanted or needed, or what I didn't trust myself anymore. So it's helping women gain clarity in their life and move forward in a way that they learn to trust themselves in the process.
And I feel like it's such a big part of confidence, because when we're constantly relying on external validation, which I did for years, I needed someone to say something to me. And what I didn't realize is that's not what I needed, because it never worked. Right? What I needed was myself to say something to myself, saying that you are more than enough, you are beautiful, all of these things that we should be telling ourselves every day. But we look to other people to tell us those things. And trust me, it's nice. Like, if, my husband will be like, you're so beautiful, thank you so much. But I want to look in the mirror and feel that about myself first. Right. And I don't want my value to be based on what someone else tells me it should be.
I would piggyback off of that a little bit to say that I'm kind of a very headstrong individual.
Shocker.
Oh, would you actually agree with that? Sometimes I describe myself as something and people are like, no, you're not at all. But
Yes,
I am.
you
I would
are.
say I'm a very headstrong individual. So a lot of times when someone says something to me, good or bad, I just don't believe it. So a lot of times when someone does compliment me and I don't believe it, that won't affect my belief at all. Like, in so in that way, I truly cannot rely on outside affection or like affirmations. Because if I don't believe it, like that's not gonna make me feel better.
That's interesting. I haven't really thought about it from that perspective because my big thing is when people compliment me, my go-to was to deny it no matter what, right? They give me a
Uh-huh.
compliment. I'm like, not really. Oh no, I don't look good in that. Oh no. Something that would kind of refute their statements instead of just saying thank you, right? Because I don't need the external validation, but by saying thank you, I wasn't putting myself down. And I think that's a huge step in just being able to say thank you, whether you care about what they have to say or not,
Yeah.
but not fighting back over it, I think is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Well, and being able to receive that compliment
Mm.
opens you up to receive so much more. And I mean, I grew up in a very logical 1 + 1 = 2 family. You don't believe in all these external things. And with that said, I grew up with faith in the universe and how, whatever you want to call it, source, God, anything. But anything extra was like, no, that's not, don't believe that. So to be able to be in a space now where I recognize being able to just take a compliment and receive it opens me up to so much more, to be able to receive new colleagues, to be able to receive new clients, to be able to receive new things. And I was working with my daughter today on that. Just say thank you. That's
Mm.
awesome. I received that. She said, "Why did you say that, mommy?" And I said, "Because I used to always do the same thing. Oh, I love your sweater. Oh, this thing, it's old.
Mm.
And I just would deflect and push back on all of it. So, Olivia, it's interesting that you say that. I think it's kind of the same. If you don't
Hmm.
believe it, you either cast it aside or you verbally push back and say, "Oh, no, I don't, it's not really that pretty," or whatever.
Yeah.
Or if you grew up in the South, it was if you received a compliment, you gave a compliment.
Mm.
So it's deflecting the same
Yeah.
way.
It's very interesting now that I'm back down here, I guess, how people, it's kind of like a compliment war. You go back and forth
Uh-huh.
for a little bit. And sometimes it feels genuine and sometimes it's just like I know this is for show.
Uh-huh.
I love your
Yeah.
nails. Oh, I love your nails too. No, come on.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Yeah.
and I
Right.
do tell people like on a regular basis if I'm somewhere and someone's checking, a cashier is checking you out and you see their nails and you're like, "Oh my God, those are so cool. I love your nails."
Right.
I don't think anybody is like giving me that compliment back, not to like s- you know, whatever, switch compliments with each other.
Right.
It's more like, "Oh, thank you." So, and it's funny working with women. So I was on this retreat and one of the things I talked about was being able to accept a compliment. And
Mhm.
it's funny because we have this group chat, and this is the gift that keeps on giving. This has come back so many times. Just this small little thing, right? You don't think that it's a big deal, but it really makes you think about how you're reacting to things. Just like, the should, right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
Um, Stop shooting yourself, right? I like that. But that little thing has come back to me so many times where people are like, "Oh, as Simone says, just say thank you," right? Don't try
Mhm.
to throw that compliment off. Just say thank you. When someone gives you a compliment, it's because they mean it, right?
Right.
It's not because they feel like they have to. So accept it,
Well, and I
accept
think
it.
too, just like you just said, having that community, but surrounding yourself with women who are on the same path or going in the direction that you're going in, you'll find that so much more often. I mean, growing up, I didn't see women supporting women and complimenting each other genuinely. It was just foreign. And I date myself a little bit, but um, I, in some instances, I would have said that I'm incredibly shy, and other ways I wouldn't. But my husband and I have been married for 11 years, and I would say for the first 8 or 9, we would be out and about, and I would say, "Oh my gosh, she has such a beautiful dress. I wonder where she got it." And he's like, "Well, you should go ask her."
Ask her.
I
Yeah.
can't do that. So he would go ask her, which is absolutely mortifying because you can imagine if some guy, random guy,
Yeah.
comes up to you and was like, "Hey, where'd you get your dress?" They're probably like halfway ready to punch him.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like, oh my gosh, why are you so scared to compliment another woman? She's going to be excited. The worst comes to worst, she's going to say, I don't know where I got this and walk away. Like, how bad could it possibly be? So that opens you up to a lot too. If you're not scared anymore, then you're going to take leaps. So the other thing that I work with my clients with is, what's the worst that could happen? What's the absolute worst? There's my husband. I was talking about him.
Hey. Surprise guest.
You know, and a lot of times the absolute worst isn't that bad. So then you can kind of work back and think, okay, well, if that's the worst that's going to happen, then I can pitch this new deal, or I can ask for this promotion, or I can go out on this date. Like, whatever it is, what's the absolute worst? And rarely, you know, is somebody's, you know, life going to be in danger, or, you know, you could end up being embarrassed, but in all likelihood, it's not going to be that bad.
I live my life by that principle, I would say. I honestly think I've really incorporated it into a lot of my like things before, especially when I was back in high school, that like I would never have done. And it's probably the advice that I give the most often to people is like, literally, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? And I think that's why I come off or am so type B, because what is the worst that's going to happen? Like, I do what I have to, but you know, there's a line, I guess. And I don't know, I feel like it's such an important realization that I made in my life is you just become so much more free.
Right. So much more free.
So I'm curious, how do you blend your neuro background and your PT background with coaching?
You know, it's more understanding the level of burnout that faces healthcare. So really being able to know what they're dealing with, know what they think. And there's a lot of women in healthcare who are incredibly talented and are exhausted. And they don't know what to do with that. It's like, I've got to bring home this paycheck. I help my family. I went to school for this. I can't leave, but I'm hating life, or I'm in a job that's like sucking my soul away. So opening them up to what else could you do? And several of my guests on my podcast have been women in healthcare who've become entrepreneurs using their expertise in a different way, or open them up to, what could I do in my current role that is going to bring me joy or bring me back to why I started out here. And I still work as a PT in addition to my coaching practice. And I actually just found a job. My dream has always been to work with patients who need wheelchairs. And I don't want to get too far in the weeds with this, but getting a new wheelchair for all that you need is a very convoluted process that requires a lot of documentation. It's kind of like law. I mean, you have depositions and you have all this paperwork, and a lot of people don't want to do it. But I'm here in Colorado, and there's a company who that's what they do, and they go into people's homes. So the patient with the neuro issue doesn't have to leave, which a lot of times is a huge barrier to go get anything done, and help them get the equipment that they need in their home. And so it's been a great balance of being able to still be a PT, which I love, and also coach women in a way that really lights my soul on fire. So
which
I don't know if that really answered your question, but
no, it definitely.
So, I mean, talking about women limiting beliefs, like what are the most common things that you come across? I mean, obviously I have 15 things in my head already that women say about themselves. Did you write a book on this? Yes, yes. But just from your experience, like what are the top 3 things that, you know, women, their limiting beliefs are? Because I think that the importance is when we talk about these things that the women who are listening understand that they're not alone, right? Because that's the first thing, because there's a lot of times where you feel like you're struggling with something and you're the only one and you don't know how to approach the subject because whether you're embarrassed or you feel shame or you just feel overwhelmed, you don't even know where to start. But when someone else says, okay, here's what I struggle with, I feel like that opens huge doors for other women to say, you know what, I'm struggling with that too.
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind is all the women that I've worked with and I'm currently working with have checked all the boxes. You know, they decided at whatever point in their life that this is what they were going to do, and they went for it and went after it. And then, you know, what's the American dream? You get married, you have 2.5 kids, and you have the white picket fence and the dogs and or the cats, whatever. And then you get to this point where you have achieved it all, and it looks nothing like you thought it was going to. Or you look around like I did and you go, is this it? And when I read Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed, she said, wasn't it all supposed to be more beautiful than this?
Mm.
And that's the statement that resonates with so many other women. You know, we have this view in our head of what either marriage or parenting or career or mothering and parenting and career all are supposed to look like. And we get there and we've checked all the boxes, but we don't feel like we have purpose anymore, or we're not fulfilled anymore, or we've lost ourself and our health in the process. And we look in the mirror and go, who is that? And what happened to her? So that's the number one thing. And I think going along those lines is because you've checked all the boxes, you're a horse with blinders on. I went to PT school. I have my doctorate. I have to be a PT forever.
Mm.
And then you look around and go, but I don't find joy in this anymore, or I don't know that this is what I love, but now what do I do? So just being able to explore different options and different things. But I think the biggest limiting belief in any of that is, oh, but I couldn't do that.
Mm.
And it's either I couldn't do that because what are people going to think? I couldn't do that because I don't have the expertise. I couldn't do that because I've been doing this for 15 years. I can't change. And there's just that fear of the unknown, I think, is the other, like, who am I to think that I could do that, is what comes up across most often.
And I always feel like my response to that is, well, do you want to? Right.
Yeah.
And it is interesting to think about that. For years, I couldn't tell you what I wanted to do. I mean, I knew I loved raising my kids and that kind of stuff, but I tried many different career paths and didn't really realize what I wanted to do. And I was just trying things like kind of stabbing in the dark, thinking like, okay, maybe this will work, or maybe this will work, or this is what people think I should do. So this is what I'm going to do versus, wow, what am I good at? What do I really like? And what do I want for myself instead of constantly thinking about what we want for everyone else?
Well, and I grew up in a family, both of my parents were incredibly hardworking people who stayed in the same job for 35 to 37 years. I mean, they both grew in their position, so it wasn't exactly the same job, but they went to the same building for over 35 years because it was secure and they had a pension. And I don't doubt that they loved it, but I do wonder sometimes, what would they have done if they had just thought of something different? There's no right or wrong. You know, I think there's a lot of people out there who absolutely love what they do and they don't ever want to think of anything different. But I do just wonder, what if?
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, I think that my mom loved what she did. I know my husband loves what he does. But I think there's so many people that don't love what they do, and they do it because they feel like they have to. And trust me, I mean, I understand you got to pay the bills. Like there's certain things that have to get done every month, but I always feel like there's another way. And whether it's not quitting your day job, but adding something else into your life, whether, volunteer work, something else that kind of fills your cup. I think it's so important that we think about those things on a regular basis. Olivia was just talking about how, what she was saying about she doesn't feel like she's doing enough right now. And she's like, I'm not really doing any extracurriculars right now. And I'm like, Do you want to be doing them? What's your answer?
No.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Yeah.
there's things that you have to do, right? And then generally
But
speaking,
I mean, we come from like, I just spent 4 years at undergrad and then before that, 4 years in high school where you're just told to overload yourself because that's how you become successful. Your focus is on building your resume and it's not about building yourself or even doing what you want.
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's a problem with the school system in general. And I mean, that's a podcast for another day. That is a good podcast for us to do for another
Oh,
day.
There you
yeah.
go.
It's really talking about how, right, there's these, you have to do these things to check the boxes, not because they're interesting to you or that you want to do them. But, and for me, like when I went to school, I was going pre-med because that's what my parents told me I had to do. And until I failed organic chemistry. And then they told me, well, I should do accounting because I'm really good at math. So that's what I did, and never asking myself, like, is this really what you want? Because I didn't know that was a question I could ask myself.
It's so funny that you mentioned organic chemistry. So I went to undergrad for zoology, and the reason behind that was because you could take so many other anatomy classes, but organic chemistry was required. It was not required for PT school. I have never failed something so badly in my life. I honestly think that the professors gave me whatever needed to be given so that I didn't have to come back because they knew I wasn't going to pass it. I mean, it
Yeah.
was horrible. I mean, like
Yeah.
30s and 40s had to have been my average. But yeah,
Yeah. That was a
I didn't
horrible
want to take
experience for
organic
me too.
chemistry. I'm
No,
never going to use that ever again.
no. But we have to, like, it's these paths that we're on. There are
Mhm.
specific boxes that you have to check to move forward. And, I don't know. Who knows how long that will be before things change, but I get some of it. Some of it I will
Yeah.
never understand.
Yeah.
Um, so talking about difficult things, what's the hardest thing that you've ever done?
Ooh.
Hmm.
Um, Believing in myself.
Mm.
You know, I didn't realize I'm 39 years old. I didn't realize until I was an adult, and I spoke on this earlier, how much external validation I needed to know that I was succeeding. And I worked with a coach several years ago, and that's what I said to him. I said, what's your goal when you leave here? And I said, I want to believe in myself above all else, regardless of what other people will say about me. And that was the first step in getting there because, I mean, I let what other people say dictate so much of my life. And, I made it through PT school. I did a lot of things, but when it really comes down to what was hard, really believing in myself has probably been the hardest thing because I've doubted myself my whole life. I've looked for other people's opinions and second guessed everything. And now, not anymore.
It's such a freeing feeling because I would tell you that I'd first say raising six kids, but I like get so much enjoyment out of that I can't tell you that's the hardest thing. I mean, there are days that are brutal, right?
Right.
I mean, there are days that are brutal, but I truly believe for me too, it was overcoming self-doubt, right? It was
Mhm.
really putting in the work that I needed. First understanding that I had an issue, right?
Right.
I didn't acknowledge it for so long. I just kind of put up this stoic face and just kept moving forward. And that wasn't the right way to approach it. I mean, it did nothing good for me, right? I still struggled with all those daily doubts on a regular basis. But for me, it was the same thing. I mean, Olivia, at 21 years old, what's your biggest?
That's the hardest thing I've ever done. I don't
Uh-huh.
know. I don't think I've done anything that could be deemed the hardest thing I've ever done.
Hmm. Okay. We'll stay tuned for that.
There
Yeah.
you go. Well, I think in tune with all of that is kind of getting over this level of perfectionism that I
Mm.
dealt with most of my life is, you know, because if it, whatever it was, didn't go in this perfect path, then I was failing or it wasn't working or
Hmm.
whatever. So being able to step back and recognize, like, okay, it's not going this path that I thought it was going to, but that doesn't mean that whatever the it is isn't happening or that we're not still moving forward. I don't know if you can hear my dog. It's thundering here and
Oh,
she's frightened of thunder. And so she's sitting on the other side of my
Oh,
door.
no, I cannot hear her. And we had a huge storm today. It just seems like it's getting worse and worse. We had a huge storm today, and the lightning, like obviously the lightning was crazy, and the thunder was so loud that the house was shaking.
Uh-huh.
And I'm thinking, okay, and we have three dogs, and two of them are very scared of it. So they're like trying to jump on top of me. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, guys, this is not going to work. Um, so going back to confidence, obviously her unshakable
Mhm.
confidence, what is, and this is something that we like to ask every
I
guest
love
because
everybody's different answer to this.
yeah, because it's so interesting. And actually the other interesting question was what we just asked you about what's the hardest thing you've ever done. That's the first time someone gave that answer. So that's really interesting to hear. We've got a lot of similar answers on that. A lot of them are about raising kids and that kind of stuff. But when we talk about confidence, what does it mean to you? Because obviously for each person it's something different, but what does confidence mean to you?
I think a lot of it is being able to know that I'm okay, that I can stand on my own 2 feet, that I can take care of myself, that I can deal with whatever comes at me. Um, and in the same space, I think that for me, confidence also is the recognition that I don't have to do it by myself,
Mm,
that asking for help doesn't make me a failure, doesn't make me needy or wrong, but that I also can trust myself enough to know, hey, I need help in this area, or I can't do this part by myself. So just being and having that intuition, I feel like is where I feel like confidence comes from.
and I think that's such an important point to make because I think a lot of women feel that if they ask for help, then it's a sign of weakness, right?
Hmm.
Or that they've failed if they can't do something all by themselves. But that's not how the world works. We're human. We're here as a community to support each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want people to help me. For years, I thought I could do it all by myself.
Oh
And
yeah.
boy, what a waste of time that was, right? Because when you let other people in to help you, it's not weakness. It is building this community of support and that it goes both ways, right? You're there to help other people. They're there to help you. And I think it's so good for our kids to see as well,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want my kids thinking that they have to do everything by themselves. Otherwise, they're not accomplished. And, a lot of people talk about being self-made. Well, I mean, there's always someone that's helping you with something, right? You
Right.
can
Hmm.
say self-made as much as you want, and I understand a lot of people have gone through a lot of struggles to get where they are. So I'm not belittling it at all. But I do think that it is so important to let other people in to share the journey with you. It makes it so much more powerful, I think.
Well, and for years, I was labeled as unapproachable or, you know, standoffish or whatever because I thought I had to do. I mean, I had this wall up and,
Hmm.
you know, I did it all and and I didn't ask for help. And I will never forget one of my coworkers years ago. She looked at me, she was like, "Oh my gosh, you always have it all together. Everything is always right." And I looked at her and I was like, "I did my makeup in the parking lot this morning." And she was like, "What?" And you could just see this wall come down of
Hmm.
like, "Oh my God, she's a normal person." And I thought, I have got to figure this out because if
Mhm.
you people think that I've got it all together, I don't.
And I think that's how we kind of go around, right? That people have I mean, that's what people had these assumptions about me that, I always had my shit together. And
Yeah.
oh my gosh, half the time I was like, let me just get through this day. But
Right.
I never, for years, I didn't let anybody in to see what I struggled with because, oh my gosh, that would have been embarrassing. And now I'm like,
Mhm.
let me tell you what I'm struggling with, right? I mean, I'm telling it on a podcast now. So, I
Hmm.
mean, that's huge growth.
Oh, right. Well, and even as a mom, I think we all go through stages of like, "Oh my gosh, is my kid a sociopath? Is this normal? What are they doing?" And then like my kiddo was little during COVID. So like I was home with her. I didn't know anything else. And
Right.
I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And then, you get back out and you get into community and you're like, oh, they're not a sociopath. That's just normal development. All right, moving on. So just like you said, being around other people and recognizing you're not alone in this journey of motherhood or career or being a spouse, it's huge.
Yeah. Ask for help when you need it.
Exactly. So wrapping up here, what's the best advice your mother has ever given you?
When you guys talked about this first, this is going to make my mother sound terrible, and she's an absolutely amazing person. But I was like, I have no idea. Like, I don't remember any advice. And what I mean by that is like, I watched my mom get up every day, go to work hard, take care of me and the dogs, and make dinner because my dad worked kind of in this rotating shift. So he was home, he provided for us, but he wasn't home a lot. So my mom did it all. So when I think of my mom, I think of this like nose to the grindstone, hardworking woman who provided for us. And then I kind of stepped back and was like, but what advice did she give me? And I actually found this book the other day. What made me think of this? When I was 16, the Leanne Womack song, I Hope You Dance, came out.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was 18 and graduated, both of my parents gave me different books. And there was a book that was based on Leanne Womack's song. And I remember as soon as that song came out, like we sang it to each other, we sang it in the car. And the message behind it is to not let anything stop you, to dance, to go, to do, to not doubt yourself. And I've started singing that with my daughter now, and she knows all the words. So when I think of like global advice, it was don't settle, don't do what people thought you should do, go dance. And it makes sense because I also danced as a younger person for most of my life. So, but when I think back, that's what she said. I hope you dance.
I love that.
That is so sweet. I love that.
Yeah, that's really good advice because, when I was growing up, and again, my dad passed away in 2019, but I have really, amazing parents. But a lot of what they said was, what will other people think? Right.
Mhm.
But that was just part of that generation. So,
Right.
now I really do say to my kids, you know, dance, do whatever fills your cup. Like you need to be
Right.
happy. You have one life. If you want to change your mind again about what you're doing, change it again.
Yeah.
There is nothing stopping you. We are here to support you, and we will always be here because that's how I want it to be. Both my
Yeah.
husband and I, we want them to feel like, trust me, I don't want them to like, change their mind 15 times in 1 year, but
Yeah.
but in general, we just want them to find something that they're passionate about and that they love and a person that they love, a person that they want to be with, right? I
Mhm.
mean, and someone that respects them. Respect yourself first, all those kinds of things. So,
Yeah.
okay, Liv, tell me your calendar for the day.
The universe is neither conspiring for nor against you. And the only thing that stops you is when you buy into the notion that you are stopped.
Oh.
Hmm, I like that one, right? You are not stopped. You got to keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of the thing is a lot of times we're the ones stopping ourselves, right?
Mhm.
We are letting other things get in our way, beliefs, these limiting beliefs get in our way, and we just need to keep moving forward.
There was a little like little tea holder, and it said something to the effect of the only thing that limiting you is believing that you have limits. Become
Mm.
limitless. So
Oh, I
same
love
thing.
that. I love that. So thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yes. Thank you so much. This has been lovely. Um, I am on Instagram at Corey Winn DPT, and my website is coreywinn.com, COREYWINN.com. So thank you so much.
Perfect. We will have everything in the show notes so people can reach out to you. And Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode of Her Unshakable Confidence. See, I did good. 2 times in an episode, I didn't mess it up.
It still sounds foreign to me.
I know, right? I mean, I just keep on trying to say the Daughter Dares podcast, but Her Unshakable Confidence. And we love doing this. So share the podcast, leave a comment, leave feedback. We're here because we want to help other women rise up. So always remember, you are unshakable.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Her Unshakable Confidence with Simone and Olivia Knego. We hope this episode has made your day just a little bit brighter and given you the inspiration you need to confidently go about your week. Always remember to be authentically you. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And feel free to connect with them on Instagram at Simone Knego and at Olivia Knego. Till next time.